Welcome to the Longevity Lounge, a podcast, a club, and an event series that seeks to uncover some of the secrets to living well and feeling younger longer. Every episode we interview a longevity legend or a health expert, from neuroscientists through to exercise physiologists, as we investigate and try to make sense of the emerging science behind longevity. I'm Carl Treacher. I'm an adjunct associate professor of social science, and I'm joined by my co-host and co-founder of the Longevity Lounge, former world Ironman champion Guy Leach. In a world obsessed with youth and quick fixes, our next guest is living proof that true greatness comes from the long game. With a volleyball career spanning an incredible 22 years and 3 Olympic Games, Kerri Pottharst has mastered the art of longevity both on and off the sand. But it's not just about athletic performance. It's about mindset, habits, and strategies that have allowed Kerri to maintain peak performance and vitality well into her post-playing career. So let's explore performance and longevity with the one and only Kerri Pottharst.
KP, welcome to the lounge.
Thanks, Leachy.
But if I think Kerri Pottharst, I'm going to call you KP during the interview because we do go back a long way, don't we? But I didn't know you when you won your gold medal at the Sydney Olympics. And if I think about Kerri Pottharst, and if the audience does, winning a gold medal at Bondi Beach would have to be the ultimate.
Yeah, it was the ultimate. I mean, having the Olympics in Sydney was amazing, and having the beach volleyball at Bondi Beach was incredible. But then winning it was like the cherry on top. For us and for me, and I guess the stage of my career, I was 35. I was, at the end of my career, as I thought. I ended up going to another Olympics after a brief retirement. But at the end of my career, like peaking at the time, like it couldn't have been more perfect timing.
And do you think winning a gold medal by yourself is awesome, but winning it with someone else, is that better? Is that actually better? Because you're mates with Nat now, right?
Yes,
so you've been mates
very close
for a long, long time.
Yeah.
That would have to, I'm assuming, would have to be even better.
Yeah. And look, I don't know what it's like to be in an even bigger team. So say the rugby sevens, they won gold, the girls in Rio. And you've got a lot of mates then that you share the gold with. But there's one or two, I guess, that you're closer with. But having just that one other person, it's like being, going to war in battle with a person that, who's got your back. And the opposite to that is if things aren't going well, that person, almost becomes your enemy, but they're in your team. So it's a hard undertaking to do it with just one person. But the fruits of winning, fantastic. And to be able to share that with Natalie every single year, the 25th of September, if we can, we go to Bondi. We crack open a bottle of champagne. We try and work out where on the sand. It's somewhere in front of the Lifesaving Club there in the middle, where we kind of collapsed on the sand. There's no legacy down there because every other sport in Sydney has somewhere they can go and go, that's where I played. We just go down the beach and go, somewhere here.
Do you remember that, don't you, Carl? You remember?
I was a bit young actually at that time, but
please.
Come on.
He is the youngest here on the lounge, but you just can't notice it visually.
Terrific, thanks. So, Kerri, for those people who don't know the story, I suppose maybe we'll just do a little bit back. We're talking about Nat as if we know her, but when did you meet? When did you become that force together? How long were you together?
Yeah. Well, I actually played indoor volleyball for 10 years for the national team, so people don't really realise that. And we never had a chance to go to the Olympics. So Olympics wasn't on my mind. I wrecked my knee after playing professionally in Italy. I was going to go on a professional kind of career and start to earn some money. Came back, wrecked my knee, couldn't get back to indoor. That's when I decided to start playing beach volleyball. And that was in my late 20s. Pretty late decision, but I had an opportunity to play with my best friend at the time. We then went on, played a few tournaments, became the number 3 team in Australia. And beach volleyball was then announced as an Olympic sport for the first ever time, but only 2 teams could go. So then I kind of looked at my best friend and went, yeah, we're doing okay, but it's going to be tough for us to break into that top 2. Looked at one of the girls in the top team, and that is Natalie Cook. And I said to myself, I think I could do better with Nat. And we started having these discussions, and Nat was a little afraid at the time of leaving her partner. But her partner got wind of the fact that we were talking, and her beach volleyball partner then went and got somebody else on board. And so Nat came to me and said, okay, I'm free.
It was done?
Yeah, it was done. And it's like,
Wow.
it's kind of like a relationship thing, you know, like you have breakups, you get together, you check each other out, you know, and it's a bit like that. And back then it wasn't as professional as it is now. Obviously the program helps team people up. It's a decision that I made, and a lot of people said to me, don't take the risk to play with Nat. You don't know if you guys are going to do any good. But I had a gut instinct, and I learnt from that. I learnt that, you know, if you don't follow your gut sometimes, you're going to live with regret. And I was prepared to take that risk rather than live with regret and maybe not make it to the Olympics.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Leachy, this question is probably for both of you. So Olympians, world champions, elite athletes, they're sort of mythical creatures to most people. and some of the behaviour and the discipline associated with that we can't really relate to. So can you help us understand, you both had long careers. Now, what is it that kept you focused? What kept you motivated?
You go first. Kerri, I'll learn from you.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, Leachy's a bit mythical to me. Well, he tells everybody he is.
Like Thor.
Not like
I find it quite
maybe
fascinating because I was speaking yesterday to a group of young girls, and they walked in. They're like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited to meet you!" And I just kept saying to them, "I'm totally normal. I'm just like you." And I think we are all totally normal. But what we find is something that we really love, and we get so passionate about it that we want to be the best at it. And I know that when I was growing up, I did want to be the best at what I did, whether it was like pin the tail on the donkey at my 10-year-old birthday party, or whether it was playing volleyball. When I first started playing, you know, people drew me in because I was tall and said, "Oh, come and play with us and we'll teach you how to play." And then I went, I want to be the best in this team. This is fun. And then I want to be the best in the state team. And then I want to be the best in the national team. And then obviously 20, 30 years later, I want to be the best in the world. So it's kind of like the thought of wanting to see how good you could get at what you love. I think the key is you have to love it. It's going to be torture.
There's enough roadblocks in any career that if you don't love it enough, you're going to pull the pin. There's some point where you go, I can't go over another brick wall. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I found personally that in my sport, the training was so hard in what we did that there was truly like you had to love it to death to just be good at it. And then I found from there that the ones that were the 1%ers, which you probably found in your sport too, were the ones that did love it to death. But for me, my drug of choice in sport was always the feeling of winning. So I was willing to go and do extras in training to outwork the opposition to get that feeling of winning, and I chased the winning my whole career, and that was my thing.
Yeah, and our sports are so different in that yours is so physical, and you said you do the extras. For my sport, because obviously physically it's difficult, we had to be physically fit, but we could still play if we had injuries, and I had many. But for our sport, it became really mental, and the strategy was a big part of it as well. So it was almost like trying to work out the puzzle. How are we going to beat our opponents with what they've got in their toolkit, with what we've got today? Because, you know, we may be injured or feeling a little bit sick, or we're in peak condition. Like, how are we going to work out our strengths against their weaknesses? So it was always that mental challenge as well, which I find really fascinating, and I loved that part of the game.
You know, you both talk about your sports and winning. I heard Robbie Slater recently let us into a little secret that he prefers to think about this as earning. You know, winning has an element of luck to it. And I think from both of you, I know, Leach, I've known you for a long time, you do outwork. And even from the physical to the mental, attitudinal perspective you're talking about, Kerri, that, you know, you're talking about how do I do this better? There's no luck in this. It's like, how do I focus and double down? Moving from that level of intensity into when you're talking, you just mentioned you love to be the best at everything, and Leachy, you're the same. You know, we'll come back to you. But coming out of your sport, is there a void because you won't be the best anymore? What's next? Like, how did you do that? How did you make that transition, I should say?
Yeah, you hear a lot about athletes struggling with transition, and I think the ones that perhaps I think swimmers actually
They
struggle because if you think about it, they're just really individual. They're just in the water. They can't hear anything. They're following the black line day in, day out.
You know what? I've got a theory, right, with swimmers. Can I tell you my theory?
Yes.
Because I was in the pool for so many years before I did Ironman, and then you had to keep swimming during it. Swimming was the sport where the athlete didn't get to have to think at all. The coach ran everything. The coach ran the program, ran the taper, ran the strategy of the race. You knew when the meet was on. You did exactly what everyone else did in the pool. There was no individualisation whatsoever, and that was the program. And so there was no thought going into, like with you going, I'll do an extra beach session today. I need to do a bit more rehab, or maybe I need to find a sports psych. None of that was in the swimming environment. And it was like when they finished their career, it was like, mate, they'd never thought for themselves ever. And then it was like, you're on your own now, see you later. Going back to the pool once a week just to check in with the coach, and you can just see the graveyard of stories that we've seen in the media from it that have been horrific. So I reckon there's something in the athletes that do better when they get out of their professional sport into the real world are the ones that get to think a bit along the way, so they take control of what they're doing, and it's not that big a changeover.
100% agree. And I would say that they are more entrepreneurial because it's not about thinking about what's going to happen after. It's about just being part of it already while you're competing and towards the end of your career. So I started speaking. We were asked to present a few times and we got a bit of money for it. We thought, oh, this is a good idea. I was petrified when I first had a microphone on my, in front of my face and standing on a stage in front of other people. But I pushed myself because I realised at the time I could earn a few dollars, which would help towards all of the costs that we had. And then I just kind of built on that and went, okay, well, I can keep doing this. And I had opportunities and I just kept building. So speaking became my main career. The other thing I did was go straight into coaching as well. So I stayed in the sport and I stayed on tour, and I went on tour with a couple of teams, a team from the USA and a team from Belgium, one year after the other. Then I realised it's not about me anymore. It's really tough, all this travel. And I wasn't prepared to do that after the first couple of years. So then I dropped the coaching. But then I just got really interested in helping people. And I think that's the key. I think you can be more successful when you're thinking about helping others. And I got really interested in helping people when I was speaking and, the feedback I got from that, and coaching and, life coaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call that. And now I like to help athletes do what I've done in terms of unpack their own stories. So towards the end of their career, they look back. And it's really, I think it's cathartic. It's actually really helpful that they can look back on their careers and go, oh, these are the lessons I learned, and these are the skills and tools that I can take into life after sport, find new passions or grow the passions that they may have had to forget about during their athletic career. They had to put them on hold, and then they can, bring them out later. So I think it's just a really important time. And I don't buy into the whole, just because I'm retiring as an athlete now, I'm going to be depressed for the next few years until I find my next goal, because I think that's just a negative thought pattern. I think athletes should look at it as this is exciting. Whether they know what they're going to do or not, it's an exciting time. It's a new period of their lives. So it's turning that around and just approaching it from that point of view, and it's going to be a lot easier for them.
It's fair to say, isn't it, that if you've been a successful athlete, that there are a lot of traits that you've got from that you should be able to take into the next phase of your life and use that as an advantage for what you do next. It makes sense, doesn't it?
This program is proudly brought to you by Ascend Performance Collagen Protein. Ascend Performance Collagen Protein uses the highest quality ingredients, is dairy-free and tastes great. Each serve contains 25 grams of protein and includes Tenderfort for joint and ligament support, as well as Gut Matrix to help support a healthy and diverse gut microbiome, using a unique combination of pre, pro, and postbiotic ingredients. To find out more or purchase, go to ascendperformance.com.au.
Leachy, you're talking about coming out of the pool into the real world. Now, I think we can all agree you don't know what that's like. So, Kerri, I'll position this question for you. What are some of those things? We talk about people transitioning from being a a professional athlete into later life, but it's the same for every person. You know, you have different stages that we move through. There's the peaks of reactive sort of behaviour that we have as we move through our 20s and 30s into this more of a comfortable position generally when we're in our 40s and 50s. And there's a psychological sort of shift, transition that takes place. What do you think is really important in terms of longevity and staying motivated and staying upbeat and positive? You know, we all have ups and downs, but generally on something of a positive position.
I think the number one thing is you need to have a goal in mind, because as an athlete, as an Olympic athlete, it was every 4 years. That was the goal. And within that 4-year period, that's obviously the Olympics every 4 years. Within those 4 years, there were World Championships every 2 years. Within that 2 years, there were World Tour events. Within those World Tour events, or that 1 year, there were National Tour events or State Tour events. So there's always that little breakdown of goals. But I think that's the biggest part for me, is when you have that transition, those are the things that you need to think about when you're making that change in your career. What's next? What am I going to work towards? And really do a deep dive into what do you love and can you get paid for it? That's really the key. What do you love and can you get paid for it?
We had Tom Carroll on last time we were here on the lounge, and we asked him what his goals were moving forward. Be very interested to hear what yours are. And he turned 60 a year ago, and he talked about what he wanted to be able to do when he was 70. So he went from a 4-year Olympic time frame to a decade. He jumped forward a decade, and he said, when I'm 70, I want to be able to surf a 6-foot wave with performance. I have to be in the water every day in the ocean and touch nature, et cetera, et cetera.
Very clear.
Have you gone on with those goals now? Have you got some longevity goals or things in place that help you steer what you're doing?
I don't have anything as specific as that, and it makes me kind of think maybe I should, but I'm doing okay in terms of like mentally being motivated, you know, for my future. So I don't feel like I need to be too specific, but definitely one of my goals is to grow older with as much health and being able to move. I've had 7 knee surgeries, so my knees are my main focus. I'm definitely going to need a knee replacement. So my goal right now, before that happens, I haven't put a date on it. I don't want to put a date on it. I want to push it as far as I can. But my goal now is to get as strong as possible in my legs. So I've had time off. I've had frozen shoulders. I've had back injuries, elbow injury. So I've just gone, you know what? I don't care how injured I am. I'm going to get in the gym up to 3 times a week if I can, you know, use resistance. I'm going to push the weight. I'm going to keep upping the weight every time. So it's that same kind of wanting to be better. How good can I get? So now it's how strong can I get in my legs before I have a knee replacement? So at the moment, I'm doing 3 times a week in the gym. And I'm doing everything seated. I'm doing deadlifts, so I'm not trying to I'm not putting any stress on my joint, but I'm trying to hit all the muscles around the knee as much as I can, and of course upper body as well. And then walking, you know, because I can't run. I have a dog and she needs to go out every day. So that's perfect. And that's my motivation, is to walk her, to get her the walk and go, no, I'm not going to drive to the park and throw the frisbee, which I do sometimes. I'm actually going to take her down this big flight of steps where I live, get down to the beach, walk along the beach, do a couple of laps along the beach and get out for 30 or 40 minutes. So walking at least once every second day or every day.
So, Kerri, you and I know Leachy as well, you both have, you would have had to have had a very strong formula that's led you to your success and long-term success. We're now in a world where we've got neuroscientists and nutritionists giving us all sorts of information. Can you talk to us about the contrast or some of the things that speak to what you did and some of the things that you found to be new and novel in this world?
Right now, you mean?
Yeah,
What's
right
new and
now.
novel?
Yeah.
It's interesting how, cold therapy is now all the rage. Well, we were doing it 30 years ago.
Right.
I remember sitting in a cold,
totally.
a bathtub in our training facilities going, why are we doing this in a freezing cold bathtub? But we were doing it when we were in a really big, heavy training load and it was helping us recover. Now it's just the thing for everybody. But I think what it's doing for people is it's a kind of a challenge. It's like, okay, if I can stay in this freezing cold water for 3 minutes, helping physically for whatever their body is at the time. But it's more of that challenge as, I'm going to kick this, I'm going to do this.
Like a resilience test, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So that's something that's obviously changed over the years.
Can I just stay with that just for a second?
Yeah, sure.
So, Leachy, I know you run a longevity practice on the weekends. I'm part of it.
Yep.
I don't enjoy it at all.
No, you struggle with your little skinny body in the cold.
I don't enjoy your commentary, your stories about coming to gold every weekend. But
life-changing.
But we do that, don't we? We go and do the contrast therapy. And
we've been doing it for a long time now. Try to study it. We've tried to work out what is the protocols that work best, what mental adrenaline, cortisol hit do you get over what period when you do it. And there's been a whole bunch of friends that we've got that have jumped in, and we now do that on Sunday. Every Sunday we do that, and it's as much social as what it is.
Is it boys only?
No. We've had my wife there, and we've had all the different partners.
It's whoever can tolerate Leachy stories.
That's right. And what I try to do is, because you're in a captured situation, particularly in the sauna. I try to vary the stories every now and then.
Do you?
Just I do try.
No, you try, but it's the same thing.
I love the saunas. I think it's really
you need to come down on a Sunday with us and do it at lunchtime when you've got time, for sure. But but in saying that, so you talk about resilience, there is definitely a point where you do get better and you get stronger in the mind. And so there's that natural bodily ability to take stress on when you get into the cold. And when you're jumping into 5 and 6 degrees, the body goes into shock, adrenaline gets released, and your body goes into, what the hell are you doing to me? And you calm your mind down, you start breathing through your nose, you calm your breathing down. And it's really, really good practice for when you're in a stressful situation, like you get cut off in traffic in a car, and your body gets used to dealing with that. So that practice definitely works. And the other thing that we have noted, you don't notice as much, Carl, because you don't do the whole protocol, but when you can get up to 10 minutes in the cold in total, and we rotate between 1, 2, and 3 minutes in the cold, then into a sauna and back and forth, you get up to about 3 to 4 hours of a high after it. So that natural high that you get is a really, really great feeling, and you get that clarity in your head. You're really clear in your mind, and it is addictive, I suppose, and you can see why people want to do it every day.
I get it on a low from being bored from your stories.
All right, let's move on now.
So, Kerri, you're saying, so the hot cold is something, or cold's something you did initially in your sport.
Yeah, and the sauna too. So infrared saunas is something that I'm starting to use a lot more, particularly in my later years through menopause. I've had a lot of inflammation in joints, for joints that haven't had any like sports injuries, just random inflammation. And I started using infrared saunas a couple of years ago when I was having a lot of elbow issues. I found it really worked. I don't understand the science behind it. It just really has helped. So I'll not do anything, and this is one, it's probably a bad habit I have. I'm not very consistent. So I'll have an issue, then I'll find an answer. Once that issue is gone, I kind of drop it. So I dropped the infrared saunas. Then I was using the ice baths for a certain reason. Then I've got a bit lazy with that. So I'll just kind of do what needs to be done at the time.
To solve a problem, right? At the time. So on the saunas, there would be a natural belief, I would consider, that by generating more blood flow through the heat, through an area that's got an injury, then the extra blood flow going through the area is going to be a healing type situation for the body. There's no doubt. And, they use heat, like physiotherapists use heat with injuries, and the fact that the infrared heats you up from the inside out.
And detox as well, just feeling like it's kind of getting rid of some of those impurities, and just feels good to have a good sweat, because I can't get a sweat up doing sport or training hard anymore.
Now, Kerri, you're heading over to the Olympics, I understand.
Yep.
And so you,
not playing.
Nope.
Commentating, expert.
But you split your time between high performance mentality, and I also work with the general public, yeah?
Yep.
Can you talk to us just a little bit about that, particularly as we think about longevity and what keeps us feeling vital and younger longer? You're switching from people who are intrinsically motivated, they get up in the morning wanting to be the best, to other people who struggle to do just basic exercise.
When you say I'm kind of in that high performance world, I talk about it, but I also commentate a lot at beach volleyball at the highest level in the world. So I'm constantly understanding, talking about, seeing what these players are going through, the stress that they're going through to even qualify through to the Olympics. That's happening right now in my life. Seeing and feeling and remembering all those moments, and then translating those to, people in boardrooms and corporate events. I think the lessons are all the same. You know, the skills and tools and strategies that athletes use to cope with those situations are the same skills, tools and strategies that you need in ordinary life. Resilience, for instance, is not something that you can buy off the shelf. It's not something I can teach you. You actually have to go through your own experiences. You have to be knocked down and get back up to understand you can do it, and then get knocked down again and then get back up to understand you can do it. So I think resilience is built through experience. I've been asked many times over the years, like, what do you think your keys to success are? And it took me a while to work out what words to use, because there are so many words. You know, Leachy, you might have some as well. But I came to 3, and we touched on it in the opening. Passion. You've got to love what you do. You've got to be really passionate about it. If you want to be the best at it, or you want to succeed or overcome challenges, you've got to be passionate about getting to the other side. Preparation, and that's training, hard work, learning, personal development. You know, in the corporate world, that might be climbing the ladder by just educating yourself, having mentors, coaches, whatever you need to get better. That's the hard work, the preparation. And then the final key, which I believe was the key that helped Natalie and I win gold in front of a home crowd, you know, with all the pressure in the world on top of us, 10,000 people in the stadium, you know, millions of people watching all around the world. And just that pressure was that we 100% believed in ourselves on that day. And so passion, preparation and belief put together, and I think, you know, you can be unstoppable.
Wow.
Good answer.
Leachy, I've paddled
I can't beat that. Seriously.
Yes, I beat Leachy.
That's incredible.
No, honestly, that was and thoughtful too, because you've obviously given it a lot of thought. Mate, well said.
Leachy, I've paddled with you for many years, and normally at the start of the paddling session, sometimes in front of you, in the session, you come up with one of your rules, right? Every session, Leachy rule number 16, right? And then there's no doubt you made them up. But
sure.
But like Kerri, did you actually have, and do you have an ethos or a set of rules that you've always worked towards that have maintained you through your professional career?
Kerri touched on before about her sport, and you know, when you got to an event, it was like a game of chess. There's no doubt in Ironman that was exactly the same. Even though you had to do, I would do 17 training sessions a week, 3 a day, Monday to Friday, 2 on Saturday, Sunday off. That was the workload side of it. But when you got to a race and you're trying to beat a Grant Kenny or a Trevor Hendy, then it came down to what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, how do you exploit that, how do you deal with the surf? Surf's different all the time. How do you work Mother Nature into it, and then sort out how you're going to beat a couple of guys that are your problems on that given day. So there was a mental side of it. But I always went back to trying to make the training harder than what the race was. So for me, I would always walk into an event, and if I could actually go and prepare, which is one of your 3 keys, if I could go and do that correctly, then the third part of what Kerri spoke about, which is the mental side, took care of itself, because I could put my foot on the start line and the feelings that I had were calm confidence. I felt brave and felt like I could execute without fear. I felt deserving to be there. I never thought that I was going to win, because you can't ever say that. To race Trevor Hendy and the surf and all the rest of it, there's no given that you're going to win, right? But I felt like I deserved to win. And the feeling when you're on the line is a feeling of calmness, because you've done the job up until now, and let's enjoy the fact that the training you've done was more painful than the race you're about to go and put yourself through. And some of the races that we did were 4.5 hours. Like, you had your shorter races, but you had those ones where you knew you were in for a day out, that was going to hurt. The other thing I did too, which I don't know whether other athletes did it, but I made a pact with myself leading into one of the major races of the year, and I used to love the long ones, was that I would become friends with pain. So I would make this pact with myself leading into the event that on this given day was a rite of passage that I would soak up, and the more I could endure, the better chance I had of winning. And so they were all parts of what I did. Yeah, but I totally agree that the 3 things that you spoke about, which was passion, there's no way you'd do my sport if you didn't love it. It was too hard. The fact that you prepared, well, if you prepared better than the rest, you won a lot of the time. And then if you did that correctly, then mentally you were going to be in pretty good shape. Not always, because I don't know any human being that doesn't have doubts. At any time. And if you say you don't, you're lying.
Exactly.
You're lying. You're
agree.
just trying to kid yourself. and you're trying to do it to present yourself in a way that is not realistic.
Yeah.
But
It's what you do in spite of those fears and doubts. It's all the hard work. Our coach used to say to us, one of the last words he'd say to us before we'd go out onto the court would be, "You've done all the work. You know you've done all the work." And that gives you the belief that you're going to be the best. I love your the word brave. I don't use that word, but I think that's who we have to be in the world these days. We have to be brave in everything we do. Whenever we're stepping outside of our comfort zone to improve, that takes courage and bravery. Stepping into an ice bath, you have to be brave. You're doing it in front of your mates. Standing on a stage and speaking, I have to be brave. Every part of life.
It's like
you need
Carl
that
here. He's in
courage.
front of 2 world champions. He's got to be brave
actually,
and stand up like
It's a very
a
good
pretend professor.
Thank
I
you.
call
He looks
him.
like a professor.
Thanks
He
so
does.
much.
It honestly does. It's such a good act.
Look, moving right along, we talk about bravery and courage and the hurt and the mental attitude. Ego is something that I'm interested in. So I did triathlon for a while, nowhere near to the level of either of you two. But
You were good though. You were good. I'll give you that. I do put shit on you, but you were good.
I worked relatively hard, but I had a problem in that if it was summer and I was looking good and my legs looked fit, some days I'd go, you know what? You're not training today, buddy. You're looking terrific.
You've ticked the box.
Now, that's a trap, right?
No,
And
you've
I
said that
imagine-
to me before, and I've literally said to you that there's no time I ever looked in the mirror caring about how I looked. I just wanted to go fast.
No, so that was a trap. And you get to the start line and you question yourself at that point because you haven't done the work. You've said, you deserve to be here. You've had some reasonable results and you look terrific. How did you both deal with, obviously ego played into this for you because you had great success, far beyond anything I could imagine. But was there a trapdoor or was there an opportunity there for you to walk into that and start believing your own publicity? And how'd you deal with that?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't think I've ever asked that. First, on the whole
question.
looking good thing, I remember I used to say to Natalie, as a joke, it's not about how we play, it's about how we look.
Yeah.
So we used to joke about
As
it.
a way of trying to keep the nerves off a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And because we're playing in bikinis, right? There is nowhere to hide.
You guys were fit though. You were
Yeah,
fit.
we were fit, but we didn't do it to look fit.
No, but you
now I
weren't.
do it to look fit.
You had a
I
six pack. I remember you had a six pack.
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you were ripped.
Yeah, and that comes from hitting the ball really hard. And I didn't work my abs. My body, our bodies all developed because of what we were doing. But yeah, the whole ego thing, when do you start to believe your own media? I think the media and all the accolades and everything just helped remind me. It was like a reward to me rather than I now think I've made it. It was just like, oh yeah, great, thanks. It's the reward I got for all the hard work I did. And even now, because I still speak and I still recognise for what I'm done, and I'm swimming in a celebrity race coming up soon in a swimming trial. And, you're going to get the whole I don't know, Lee hasn't been
Where's
invited.
the invite?
You weren't invited to that one.
Please, I'm obviously too good at it,
No,
or
I'll
I'm not a
need-
celebrity
Not as
anymore.
humble
Now I'll
as
need
some.
some tips before I leave on how to
Sure,
swim.
I'll give you tips.
Because I'll try
Here
not
we
to
are.
drown. I keep getting those accolades and, walking into here. And again, it's like, to me, it's like the reward for
That's
the
who
hard
you are,
work.
though. That's
Yeah.
what you deserve
Yeah.
that. It's funny for me. It was a conundrum. It was a catch-22 because I always knew that once I won a race, that in my head I went, that doesn't count now. We start again. Everyone's out to beat me. It's like that. I just forget about that, and now I go back to Monday training, and I do 17 sessions this week, and I got to bleed in training. And if I do that, I'm a good chance of winning again. But I could walk down the beach with 30,000 people there ready to watch the race. And that's where that bravery came in. Because I'd done 17 sessions a week and I'd done it for X amount of weeks in a row and didn't miss a session and I was going fast. So I walked down the beach and I felt like I owned the beach. Not because I thought that I was better than anyone else, because I just soaked it up and went, you know what, this is where I'm meant to be. Because I deserve this. I've gone and done the work and I know I've trained harder or I believed I trained harder than everyone else. And that was my thing. So that comes back down to that bravery piece. But then I walked away if I won the race off the beach and went, okay, awesome.
Next.
Let's celebrate tonight. But come Monday,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist.
And it's interesting how That's incredible. And it's interesting how different people have different reactions in those situations, talking about being in front of thousands of people. So with Natalie, we were very different. So Natalie was the cheerleader in our team. So she would like be getting the crowd after win a point. She'd got to go louder and louder, come on, cheer for us. And I would be head down. I couldn't look at the crowd. I'd be face down looking.
So she's nearly doing the thing you don't want to have done.
Yes, I don't want to. I felt like more self-conscious, but I wasn't self-conscious, but I had to stay really focused by not doing that. For me, it was keeping my focus. But I'll never forget, like the last point landed out, and this is the way I describe it. I'd built over that 10 days of competition at the Sydney Olympics like a cone of silence around us. And when the last ball landed out and we hit the ground, or I hit the ground, then Natalie came and landed on top of me, and she's like, like, get up, Kerri, get up. Like, everyone's cheering and she's hands in the air and everything. And
she's the showman, isn't she?
Yeah, she's a showman, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm head down in the sand.
I remember the shot. Yeah.
And I look up and all of a sudden, like it felt like that cone of silence, the glass kind of shattered down around me, and all of a sudden I could see the people's faces. Everything came into focus. And then I was almost embarrassed because it was like, oh my God, everyone's looking at us. It's just this whole range of stuff that goes on in your head, you know.
Did you ever say to her, hey, Nat, can you stop like revving the crowd up? It's actually hurting my performance.
Not really, because that would be stopping her from being who she was. It was like she never told me to like, come on, rev the crowd up. Yeah. I remember if I got into like a little bit of, you know, conflict, you know, sometimes between teams you can have, you know, throw a few words or give an extra rah through the net. If I got involved in that, totally would throw me off my game. To completely ignore any sort of angry feelings or frustration towards other people. I could be angry through the ball, but
not at the other person.
Yeah, because that would then mess with my emotions, and that would just be a distraction.
And you knew that, right? So you knew that was how you needed to perform.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Was your thing.
But some people, when I'm just commentating now and I watch the differences in the personalities, you know, they can do a bit of a like, just fires them up. So interesting.
So KP, tell us like now, so you're not far off the magical 60. Like,
tell everybody.
Oh, well, you're at my 60th. And so, you know, I've joined the club. You're not far off. Our tagline is younger, longer for the Longevity Lounge. You know, people listen in to get tips on what they should do and some motivation and inspiration. So just give us a rundown of what you do on a weekly basis to help your cause.
Well, the first thing, I always make sure I've got something that I'm working towards, a purpose, a goal, whatever you want to call it, something in mind that I think about every day that I want to, you know, get some steps done towards. So I think that is the most important, you know, mentally, to have something to work towards, having a purpose. Then for my own body, I make sure I move. It's not good to sit down for 8 hours a day and then go to the gym. I mean, that's no good. You've got to find some space in that 8 hours to move your body. So whether that movement for me is in the summer, I might go for a swim, not very often, but I'm trying to be better at it because I've had a lot of knee injuries. I walk a lot with my dog. So the purpose is to walk the dog, but it obviously helps me. I try and do meetings with friends walking, catch up with friends walking. So that's really awesome. I get in the gym up to 3 times a week. I try and make it 3 because I understand that, you know, 1 time is not going to do much. 2 times going to pretty much maintain where I am, but 3 times a week it's going to make some gains. So I try and do that. And then I'll try different things here and there, Pilates, maybe some yoga, not very often, but again, you know, just try it when I feel like it. Do what I love, and that I think again is the key.
And on the food side, what do you do with nutrition?
Food side, I'm very fortunate that I like good food, so I'll eat everything. I make sure I have protein paced throughout the day as well, that each meal has protein, because as we get older, we're wearing down our muscles, so we need to continue to kind of nurture our body with a high level of good quality protein. So I'll try and have maybe a protein shake at least somewhere in the day, and then put some protein in those meals. I don't weigh myself, but as a female, I notice when my clothes are starting to get tight that I need to be careful, you know, maybe stop drinking all the time, or, you know, eating all the rubbish food. And it does go in ebbs and flows. Again, you know, you got to do what you love. You got to enjoy life, but find what works for you, and just keep a bit of a lid on some of those things that aren't so good, but treat yourself at the same time. So that balance is important.
Kerri, thanks so much for joining us today on the Longevity Lounge. It's been a real treat.
Thank you.
Thanks, KP.